Hello, welcome to Tuesday Live. I am Ominida. President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday last week declared national emergency on corruption that is backed up with the Executive Order 6 to deal decisively with matters. The Executive Order will seek to restrict especially of recovery of looted funds and seizure. And
people. The menace permeates all the levels of government, including the private sector, thereby creating a gap between the wealth of the nation and the available infrastructural facilities the country can be proud of. As a result of corruption, Nigeria, an oil-rich country, at a point find it difficult to discharge its constitutional responsibilities to the people. Development has led to inability to access functional education, stunted economic growth and industries, leading to poverty in the land, high rate of unemployment, and lack of access to Medicare, resulting in medical tourism, thereby depriving the people their hard-earned resources. To rid the country of the challenge that has made life more miserable to the people, President Muhammadu Buhari, as the candidate of the APC in 2015, promised intervention in 3 critical areas of security, economy, and corruption, a position he reaffirmed on assumption of duty as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Another milestone in the fight against corruption, a project that is very crucial to the viability and continuous well-being of this country. Whilst there are many reasons why Nigeria has been struggling, regrettably, the most unfortunate cause of great disparity between Nigeria's wealth and its poverty is endemic corruption. There is also a very strong link between corruption, peace, and security. Unfortunately, corruption is everywhere.
3 years down the line, the anti-corruption war is paying off with the recovery of over 500 billion naira and 605 convictions by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
Mostly, the defendants in many of the high-profile cases still have unrestricted access to these funds, and with such war chest, they have made the administrative and judicial process involved in the fight against corruption rather difficult.
In its avowed commitment to fight corruption in the interest of Nigeria and Nigerians, the present administration is witnessing corruption fight back. To curtail this necessitated the proclamation of Executive Order 6, which is a declaration of national emergency on corruption in Nigeria.
We recognize that there are more grounds to cover in the war against corruption, and we are prepared to go out to possess those hands by cutting off any means that facilitates corruption and supports its growth.
That the essence of this executive order is to rejig, to give more potency to the fight against corruption. We all agree in Nigeria that where we are today is not where we ought to be, and that a major factor responsible for our backwardness, the poverty that has bestrided the landscape, is as a result of corruption.
One thing is certain, it is born out of the need to further strengthen the fight against corruption.
It's proper in terms of the fact that Nigerians, countrymen, let's sit up. We signed up to fight corruption, but corruption is now gradually fighting us to the back.
Country that wants to live and breathe must stand up to the fight against corruption. And you know that drastic situations demand drastic measures. So that is where the Executive Order 6 comes in.
The order is to rekit and retrieve the anti-corruption agencies through the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation to get an order of the court for temporary seizure of a property suspected to be the proceeds of corruption pending the determination of the case. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
That report by Dele Atumbi puts us on the right track to take off on the program, but the apologies for the initial audio loss on the program. Before we take off, President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday last week declared national emergency on corruption that is backed up with the Executive Order 6 to deal decisively with matters of corruption. The executive order, which seeks to restrain owners of assets under investigation from carrying out any further transaction on such assets, has dominated discussion. While many Nigerians see the development in good light, especially against the background of recovery of billions of looted funds and seizure of assets within and outside the country, critics feel otherwise. Their argument is that Nigeria has enough legal legislations and procedure to deal with cases of corruption, and that the Executive Order 6 could be abused. There are, however, stronger arguments for Nigerians to see the Executive Order 6 as a paradigm shift from the traditional mechanism to a creative way in tackling ground corruption in line with global practice. The new dimension in fighting corruption. How prepared is the public, patriots, to queue behind Executive Order 6 and salvage the incalculable harm already done to the people of Nigeria? Or could the situation be that of the popular cliché that when you fight corruption, it fights back? Well, the background has been taken by our correspondent, Dele Atumbi, setting the path for the takeoff of this program. I have a full house tonight, and the focus once again is wielding the big stick against corruption. Before I introduce my guest tonight, let me quickly say that Tuesday Live has a character. At some point, we shall go, open the lines, put your calls through. If your line is through, please go straight to the point and give us your line of thoughts, either by contribution or questions, and the gentleman on set will react to them. And when you do this, please turn down the volume of your television set to avoid the hallback. Once again, wielding the big stick against corruption, I have a full house tonight. To my immediate right, I have Dr. Musa Usman Abubakar, Acting Chairman, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC. Good to have you on Tuesday Live.
Thank you very much.
Director Legal and Prosecution Department of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Mr. Chile Okoroma. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers.
Reverend David Ogolo, Executive Director, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice and convener of the Nigeria Forum on Asset Recovery, GIFA. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Well, gentlemen, well, a good right, and I believe you listened to the report, good tone. But let me just say quickly that one would say this particular, we have had executive orders in Nigeria over time. Mr. President, the acting president, and now Mr. President has signed a couple. But this one has generated so much reaction. Is it because it's on corruption? But basically, let me give a sum this way. Some say it's a tool to injure opposition, action unknown to the Constitution, President acted constitutionally. But ultimately, we are here to tell Nigerians on the need to know, truth be told, the facts laid to bear. So, one will say, with the strides recorded in the fight against corruption in Nigeria, why would a president want to sign an executive order of this magnitude? Chairman.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to this program. Actually, the president on Thursday, the 4th of July, signed this executive order, Presidential Executive Order number 6, titled, number 6 of 2018 on the preservation of suspicious assets connected with corruption and other related offenses. He actually signed it to demonstrate political will, to fight corruption in the country, which we all know that is something that is endemic, systemic, and pervasive. The other reason why it was signed is to actually, awaken the agencies responsible for the fight against corruption, particularly the ICPC, EFCC, Code of Conduct, to actually be alive to their responsibilities. To me, the order has not brought something new outside the existing laws. It is actually restating our powers in the existing laws. So for somebody to say that it is unconstitutional, it is only when maybe he didn't read the Constitution or the existing laws, particularly Section 37 of the ICPC Act, which empowers the Commission to seize property that is suspected to be a proceed of crime, corruption in this matter.
Okay.
And that power is categorically provided in the Act, and I believe there is also a provision, I think Section 23 or 33 of EFCC, which also provide for such a power. So it is restating what the law provide already.
Okay, let me take on Kuruma, sorry.
Yes.
He has given his opening remarks, but let me go straight to this. In line with our central theme, speaking about wielding the big stick against corruption, what would be the implication of this act, this order, if it becomes fully operational?
Me personally, I don't think people have any need to entertain fears. Fundamentally, in the order, there's a provision, Section 3, which says that any person who is aggrieved by the executive order can go to court and seek redress. So the court is there to protect any perceived abuse or abuse of the executive order made by the president. So I don't think that people need to entertain fears. And also those who are saying that it's targeted against the opposition, I need to allay their fears, because it's not even people who are in the shadow, first shadow of the order. There are people who are also in the president's party who are standing trial in court for corruption-related offenses, whose names are also there. So it's not targeted against opposition. But the point is that there are different ways to fight corruption. Corruption requires a multi-pronged, multi-directional approach. There are preventive measures in the fight against corruption. There are also prosecution, criminal enforcement of prosecution in the fight against corruption. There is also this aspect, which is very fundamental, issue of recovery of assets which are derived from corrupt practices. So if you leave assets that are derived from corrupt practices, for the person who maybe his person is prosecuted and is convicted, at the end of the day, he waits. If he finishes serving his time, he will go back to use the property. So you have not achieved anything. So the rule now, the principle, fundamental practice, the best practice is that take away the assets. And that's a great incentive to engaging in corrupt practices. So that is my position.
Okay, Chairman, came from the perspective of the general principles.
Yes.
You came from the perspective of the constitutionality.
Yes.
Now let me go to Ogolo. A number of persons imagine that from the perspective the chairman of ICPC gave and the EFCC man feel that this executive order gives sweeping powers to the Minister of Justice and other agencies to gag everybody. What do you think?
Well, what the chairman of ICPC has said and our friend from the EFCC is not far from the truth. But however, what the critics are also saying, there are some facts in it. History is very important. And if you look at the issues the critics are raising, first, the fear that this executive order could be used by the current government to which on opposition party is an issue. that you cannot just sweep aside. Particularly against the background that it's less than 1 year, we're going to a presidential election next year. That's a risk. That's an issue. 2, this government, people have also raised questions about not also focusing on those who are within the government who are involved in corruption. Take, for example, the former SGF. That's an empirical evidence until he was relieved of his position. So some of these issues tends to raise question as to the fairness of the government in dealing with the corruption issue. That are the issues that we must not sweep aside. And then the issue of allowing the sweeping power in the hands of a president, who perhaps there is some concern, we must put them in context. And that's why in tackling corruption, there is need to build consensus. And in building consensus, you need to take into consideration the context. In our own occasion, there is no doubt what President Buhari have done by coming out with this executive order is revolutionary. And we must commend him and congratulate him. We, as civil society that are working on asset recovery in Nigeria, we see this as a huge opportunity. And the concern that the critics are raising, we see it as also again reinforcing the need for the president to be cautious. You know, the chairman of the ICP, acting chairman, said the issue of political will. When you use that word political will, is very sweeping. And in going down the element of a political will is the ability of the president himself to use as an example those who are around him. A situation where you have a conversation of corruption around EFCC and the Minister of Petroleum, and the president do not take action, it sends a wrong signal. And the issue of trust comes clearly. So if you look, the whole discussion is issue of trust. Do the people trust the president? And so the president should take it very seriously. And that's where they must begin to put in operation that in dealing with this issue, in implementing this order, there should be fairness.
Okay, let me interject now.
Yes.
In fairness,
yes,
would you say this executive order is a violation of the Constitution?
Not at all. If you look very clearly, people who are involved in grand corruptions around the world, they like to hide under the issue of rule of law and constitutionality to avoid them not to be arrested. And it's not just Nigeria alone. In Kenya, the same thing. In Philippines, the same thing. And so in the case now, around the world, people are looking, government are looking for innovative way in tackling grand corruption. Because the implication of grand corruption is huge. If you look the Panama paper that was released, look the names that were mentioned from Nigeria. These are people that are in power. They have so much resources, so they can subvert the rule of law.
Okay, let me hold you them. Let me come back to the acting chairman of EFCC. In your opening thoughts, you talked about this whole thing is about gingering the agencies to be more proactive, to be more active, to have a stronger will to move. Yes. Can you further expound on this so that we get it clearer?
Okay.
I told you we are here on the need to know, to be told.
Okay. So what is important, first of all, is for us to appreciate, the order itself. The order has about 7 sections with 2 schedules. Schedule 1 listed about 155 existing cases in court. Schedule 2 listed the agencies that are responsible for enforcing the order, which included, ICPC, EFCC, Code of Conduct, Security and Exchange Commission, Corporate Affairs Commission, quite a number of them. And as I said, basically, it made reference to the powers provided in the existing laws. In the existing laws, if you
exactly.
Read the preamble of it,
yes,
the powers of these agencies as per the existing laws, they should, make use of them in, ensuring that the assets are temporarily, seized. The point is, as I said, when somebody is accused of committing an offense, let's say homicide, for instance, his liberty is, to some extent, infringed because the constitutional provision of right to life is not an absolute right. It has, some limitations. Just like the right of to own property, Section 44 of the Constitution provides that you have the right to own property. But it didn't stop at that. It says, notwithstanding that, right you have, Section 44 2K provides that when an investigation or inquiry is being made, against that individual, that property, his right to own it, can be, infringed. Okay. In other words, there is derogation. So, yes. That right is a derogable right. So if investigation is conducted in respect of,
that particular property,
it can be seized. So it's no longer something absolute. So our laws, as I said, generally, they provided for things like that. That once there is reasonable ground to believe that somebody acquires a certain property, through illegal means, if the agency, EFCC, ICPC, is of the belief that that person has actually acquired that property illegally, the law allows that they can, seize it temporarily, pending the, final determination.
Does that not amount to being prejudicial?
Well, what makes it prejudicial? If we say, property, suspected to be, proceed of crime should be left with individuals. We can as well, let me give an example of this, recent case of this kingpin of kidnappers, Evans. Okay. We know that he has a lot of properties in Nigeria and abroad. And when he was arrested, of course, naturally, these properties he has, were actually, seized by the police because they believed they were proceeds of crime. So if we say, things like that cannot be, seized, then we can as well release the properties of.
Okay. I'm happy. I think we're losing it now.
Yes.
And somewhere we'll tighten it when we get it right. Now, moving on to you, now you use one word, and this argument is also there on this. If there are existing laws, why then an executive order?
Laws and the orders are made, instruments they are made to deal with particular issues, or to give force or reinvigorate the implementation of laws or orders by government. Particularly when maybe there are perceived lapses or weaknesses. Most times most laws have maybe one lacuna or the other, which can be taken advantage of. So even when the laws are there, it's either that further orders can be made or laws can be amended, or executive orders can be made to take care of such weaknesses. For instance, I heard Attorney General talking about interference with those assets. That is what he was saying. So if there is actually interference, then there is need for another executive order to prod or give impetus to law enforcement agencies to be on and the Attorney General to be on their guard by making sure that those assets are not interfered with or dealt with pending the conclusion of the cases in court. So it's not a case of say, we are endowed with many legislations. Yes, legislations are made when need arises. And when there are perceived gaps in the legislations, then certain measures can be taken to deal with such gaps.
So are you saying that it is a legislation now?
Yes.
Is it?
No, this is executive order, although you can't find it in the Constitution, but it's implied in Section 5 of the Constitution, which vests executive powers on the president, and then which he can exercise by himself, or through the vice president, ministers of government, or other people in the public service of the federation. So, when such you have that provision, and if the president could rely on that to make an order, then it has a force. It's like a subsidiary legislation.
Yes, it is.
You have a number of legislations that give powers to the president or other functionaries of government to carry out certain regulations, make some regulations or orders. Now, for instance, you have the Bank Employees Declaration of Assets Act. Under that, the law prohibits bank employees and chief executive and then customs officials from engaging in illicit enrichment. Okay. So when they do that, and they are investigated, of course, they are required to declare their assets. If in the course of time they are investigated and found to be living above their means, such people can be prosecuted, and then those assets, they'll be deprived of those assets. And now, Section 12(2) of that act gives the president the power to add other persons, authorities, or even in the public and private sector, you know, to the application of that act.
Within all this, are there thresholds in between? I ask this, will it not amount to, at some point, some functional overlaps among the agencies? Or will it create a broader or stronger synergy among them?
Of course,
in the course of implementation.
There is overlap in the functions of the law enforcement agencies, but there has not been any crisis in the course of execution of their mandates. So, and there's synergy, there's collaboration. They work together. They know the extent. For instance, there are certain cases where in the FCC, in the course of time, we had investigated and found, look, this comes within the domain of the ICPC, and we have had to transfer such cases to them, which they prosecuted and reported back to us and said, look, we have done this, this is the result. So there won't be any crisis.
Okay. Yes. When the president tries to translate his executive powers into what it should be, most times, like is the case of this one, it is largely misinterpreted. Before I ask you your question, let me give you this argument. Does this executive order have the force of law, or is it an administrative procedure that enhances adherence with due process? Some persons feel it has the force of law, then it is or has become an affront to the Constitution and also an abuse of the rule of law and separation of powers. The executive powers of Mr. President, can you break it down again for us? No, I believe this is where a lot of persons are getting it wrong.
First, let me also say that the issue whether it is an administrative or is legal, you know, there's nothing the president will do that you will not have different interpretation. I think the major thing I said earlier on is issue of trust. How the president deployed his power and how the citizen perceived him. And that's why in developed country, government invest in trying to gauge the opinion pool of the citizen, so that whatever any action or inaction, government wants to know how the people feel. If you conduct opinion poll today in the country about issue of trust, you find that people, because of what has happened, I mentioned two that I think you will agree with me, that Nigerians were not very happy. When the SDF was involved in criminal case, bribery, grass cutter business, the people expected the president to act quickly. That didn't happen. It damages the reputation of the president before the eyes of the people.
But at some point, offer some explanations.
No, I'm just...
to the public.
I'm trying to provide an empirical evidence that sustains why people are having doubt and people are afraid. And I also said that in the less than in next 1 year there will be presidential election, and the people who wants to become president, they will do anything to interpret whatever anything the president wants to do as political. But for we as civil society who has been campaigning for the federal government or for the president to exercise the political will to ensure that anti-corruption becomes successful in the country, we view what he has done as a huge success. But however, we also take notice of the concerns that those who are arguing about the issue of constitutionality and legality. And so, in implementing this executive order, the president must ensure that there's transparency in terms of disclosure. Like what they have done now in the schedule. All those cases, nobody can come and say, oh, it was the president who just included that name. There are existing cases that is ongoing in the various courts across the country. And you have also seen some names who are also member. As a matter of fact, Ojukalu name is there. And I saw him today in a photograph with the APC chairman and Fayemi, who is contesting in Ekiti State. What does that send to you? It does demonstrate that the political will the president is trying to exercise in anti-corruption is irrespective of the political party you belong to. That for us is something that is very revolutionary.
Okay, how do you place this? Mr. President came on board.
Yes.
And a number of persons painted him as a dictator.
Yes.
And he has consistently said, I'm no more that military man.
Yes.
I'm now a Democrat.
Yes.
And he has consistently said that so long as there's a proof of innocence, you are let loose.
Yes.
But if you're found culpable, the law will catch up with you.
Yes.
So how do you place that?
And that's why I'm saying that that is against the background why we, as civil society, welcome this decision of the executive order. And we see it as a tool to go against those that are involved in grand corruption. Like I mentioned to you, it is not just President Buhari that is taking this step of looking for innovative way to tackling corruption. Our president participated in the London Anti-Corruption Summit in London, where countries, US, UK, Switzerland, all agree on certain commitments. And I think the executive order falls within those commitments. And one of those commitments is looking for an innovative process of tackling corruption. We just returned back from Washington last year at the Global Forum on Asset Recovery. There were principles that were agreed. This executive order again reinforces some of those principles. And one interesting thing about this executive order is the redress mechanism. If you feel strongly that you are unnecessarily accused, you have a right to approach any court in the country to demand that your right is being infringed. But let me tell you that what the president have done is that there are different approaches of tracking corruption these days. And one of the key approaches that is not putting people in prison. It doesn't benefit the country. Okay. What benefits the country is to go after the asset. Once you can separate these people from the asset, because as a matter of fact, recovered asset is now a major source of income for this country. I'll just give an example. $322.5 million have been recovered from the Abuja's family. It's going to be distributed across the entire country. Over 300,000 poor people will benefit from this money. So the fight against corruption is not about Buhari. It's about the people of Nigeria. Okay. It's about the people who are victims of this grand corruption. Okay. And rather than investing in criminal approach that will take 10 years, go after the asset. And that's why our campaign, crime must not pay. We must send the right signal, and it's the better way to change people's behavior. And even in UK, where you say they are practicing rule of law, they are practicing democracy, they have also come with what they call unexplained wet order that provide a tool for the law enforcement agent in UK. If you are driving a car or you are in a building that they see your income is not commensurate with the lifestyle you are living, the law enforcement agency in UK will go after you.
Thank you.
And there's nothing different with
if I understand
what
you,
executive order is doing.
With the team we have
yes.
Now, I think I understand that, okay, if we're going about the anti-corruption onslaught from this direction,
yes,
and we feel, okay, we could do it a lot better.
Yes,
in this
exactly.
direction. Okay, now let me get to the chairman, acting chairman, ICPC, and the man from EFCC. Now, Section 5 of the Constitution gives the president executive powers. And in trying to exhibit or translate his executive powers to what it should be to the agencies like ICPC, EFCC, and others I cannot remember here. You have the long list here. How do you enforce the Executive Order number 6 so that it does not go the way of a legislation? I leave that to the two of you.
Okay.
I think we've gotten a clearer picture now.
Yes, yes.
This Executive Order 6 is, can we make the anti-corruption
more
work
effective,
more proactive,
exactly,
following the non-conventional approach, maybe a better approach that could get us there faster? So, how, in line with Section 5 of the Constitution, which gives Mr. President executive powers, how then will ICPC, where you are acting chairman, EFCC, where you're director of legal department, enforce this order so that it does not go against existing legislations?
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, immediately the order was signed, that was on Thursday. On Friday, I called an emergency meeting of the management, and we, brainstormed on the order generally, and we actually appreciated it very well that it hasn't given any agency, the power to, to violate the fundamental rights of any individual. So this is the one point we made very clear to everybody, to all our operatives, that the power there is already existing in our laws. It's already existing in our laws. I repeated it several times. It is stating that power, that please, you should,
take seriously.
Gingering us, to take it serious, and you understand. So we immediately received that, we discussed it, and we started, trying to strategize how we will go about it. In the course of doing that, we started by identifying the challenges we have in, in seizing properties generally, because if the president is telling us to sit up, there must be a reason why the commission is not really doing well in seizing properties of people suspected to have committed some corruption cases. So as I said, we identified a number of challenges, which included the problem we have when we go to the court to seek for what we call banker's order. Banker's order. Our law empowers the chairman to give directives to any bank that is holding any suspicious money in any account, not to allow withdrawal from that account. So it's what we call PND.
Any limit?
Post no debit. No. The chairman, the moment he's satisfied that that money in that account is, being investigated and it's a suspicious,
proceed of crime,
he sent a directive to the bank not to allow anybody to part with, any fraction of that money. And if any bank does that, they will be liable on conviction to pay twice the amount they was. So this is one thing we have there. So this one we don't have much problem with it. Where we have a problem is where we want to get access to the money. Maybe we want to know who are behind that account.
Okay.
Who are behind that account? How much is in that account? We need what is called banker's order. So we go to the court to seek for banker's order, magistrate court, high court, and the major problem we are having with that is in some courts when you go, they've been directed not to, issue that order at all. Some will tell you, we need, for you to get banker's order, you have to come by way of motion. Lawyers know what to mean by.
So with this now, do you have the instrument now to maybe surpass that and execute further?
Sorry, no. What I'm where I'm trying to arrive at is to show you the challenges we have, and why this order will help a lot in, making other agencies also, to sit up and do the needful. You go and they will tell you have to come by way of motion for you to get that order. Okay. Some will tell you need to come by way of an affidavit, and some will even ask you to produce the petition for them to see the facts. Okay. As long as you allow the fact of that case to be made known to other people, the whole case is already compromised. Okay,
let me hold you there. Yes. We have this caller from Benin Kebbi, Umar. Hello, Umar. Thanks for calling on to Tuesday Live. Hello, Umar. You're on to Tuesday Live.
Umar Anache, calling from Benin Kebbi. I think fighting against corruption will have a itemized number of problems and number of solutions to the problems. One is we have to change our presumptions. Anybody who is allegedly corrupt will presume guilty until proven beyond reasonable doubt that he is innocent. This issue is proven guilty, not proven innocent until beyond reasonable doubt that he is guilty. No, we want him to be guilty until proven beyond reasonable doubt that he is innocent. That is one. Secondly, we want to strengthen our investigative body to the extent that they carry out forensic investigation. Thirdly, we want to have prosecutors, because most of Nigerian lawyers were trained on defending cases. They were not trained on prosecution. That is a problem. You find a very fine case, but when you don't have a good prosecutor, he will fuck up in the court of law. So that is it. We retrain and train our lawyers and judiciary staff to prosecution process. Then, again, we need to have a forensic investigation, strengthen our distance, what do you call it, our investigative body. Then finally, we need not to celebrate corrupt people. We need not to celebrate them at all. Yes, this is the measure that if we take them, definitely we will fight corruption headlong. May God continue to bless our country.
Thank you so much, Umar. Well, it's as though Umar was following your trend now, in a lot of thoughts, trying to expound on ways to really properly streamline and translate the Executive Order 6 into reality. Now, he has raised the issue of the need to go scientific, not hard copy the way we go. So let me hand over that to Okoroma to sustain your argument now on what you intend to do in order not to violate existing legislations by implementing Executive Order 6.
Okay, firstly, the powers of EFCC are derived from the enabling legislation. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Establishment Act of 2004. And we don't exercise our powers beyond the mandates as provided in the Act and other legislations that the Act adopted and mandates the Commission to enforce. And the provisions of the Act and other acts are all in line with the Constitution. Okay. And we have been using the Section 26 for seizure of assets of people who have been investigated for corrupt practices or violating economic and financial crimes laws. And then tracing Section 27, 28, 29, 34 of the Act.
Okay, let me just hold you briefly. I'll come to sustain that.
Yes.
Ibrahim is calling from Bayelsa State. Hello, Ibrahim. Hello, Ibrahim. You're on to Tuesday Live.
Hello?
You're on to Tuesday Live. Go ahead. It looks as though we have lost that.
Hello, good evening.
Okay. Ibrahim, you can hear us?
Oh my God.
You're on live to Tuesday Live. Well, go ahead.
Yes, as I was saying.
Hello?
So, now, the procedure is this. When we seize assets, of course, you can't run away from the fact that, first of all, when you see assets that are suspected to be police or crime, you must seize them first. You can't go to court. Before you go to court and get an order to seize, the thing would have, it would have flown away.
So how will this executive order 6 now act to making it a bit much more expeditious?
Yeah, it will. The thing is that it will make law enforcement agents to be on their toes. There are sanctions under Section 4 of the order. The law enforcement agencies are enjoined or mandated to diligently and vigorously cooperate with the Federal Ministry of Justice and the Attorney General for the implementation, towards the implementation of the order, on pain of some sanctions for non-compliance. So that's enough warning. And the effect of it is that it will make them to redouble their efforts and devise scientific means and other means of ensuring that these assets are protected from dissipation or transfer or being dealt with until the final conclusion of the cases that they are related to.
Okay, let's take this call from Sunday. Sunday is calling in from Suleja. Hello, Sunday. You're on to Tuesday Live. Hello, Sunday. If you can hear us, you're on to Tuesday Live. Can you make your points?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Are you listening? Are you hearing me?
Go ahead. We are listening to you. Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening.
Go ahead.
How's everything?
We are good. Go ahead. Make your point. Make your point.
Of the corruption.
Okay.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
I want to chip to the matter of corruption what Mr. President is doing in Nigeria. What Mr. President is doing is what is very good that they are doing in another country. Because if you look at China, this is what they did, and they are making their country to be better today. You will see when people are losing money, doing whatever they are doing, they are trying to keep the money out of them to become a problem to the country. You will look one person carry money, the money that they take to help the masses in this country. Imagine where Nigeria was better when we are against the government that starts on corruption. If all of us cannot fight corruption in this country, who will fight the corruption for us? And who will stand for the corruption to make sure the masses have their rights in this country? We are looking another way. This one is that when you started and arrest somebody, people will say they are against Mr. President. If you cannot support Mr. President at this time, who will be our ambassador in this country? Who will be the person that will confront the corruption in this country? Look at what all of them are doing. They are trying their efforts to make sure that this country will be established in a good way for future for the masses. But everything they will go against it. They group themselves. It is the nation we are going to be facing ourselves. this is what I can say to this matter.
Thank you so much, Sunday.
Thank you.
That was Sunday. I think Sunday is aligning with all of you, and I think basically he is addressing the conscience of Nigerians. That we are not looking at this thing from the perspective of Mr. President, but Nigerians should buy into this, own it. The fight against corruption is not about EFCC, it's not about ICPC, it's about the totality of Nigerians, the totality of the tiers of government coming together to ensure that this whole thing succeeds. Let me allow get to Ogolo. How best can we talk with Nigerians to see this thing from the perspective of that Mr. President means well for Nigeria?
First, just to
set an example in Africa and indeed the world.
And I'd like to read some section of this executive order which take into consideration the issue of rule of law, the issue of fundamental human rights, and the issue of relying on the existing institution for implementing this order. This executive order is not creating new institutions. And in implementing this order, they are going to rely on existing institution. What this order have done is that the president have responded to the commitment reached at the London Anti-Corruption Summit, the outcome for the Global Forum on Asset Recovery in Washington, and the concern from anti-corruption campaigners in Nigeria. We all agree that things are not working. The corruption is increasing. The Transparency International Corruption Perception Index is not improving. Government is investing in anti-corruption agency, and the recovery is not increasing. To the extent that Tambo Mbeki report showed that about $50 billion is leaving the continent, and Nigeria was singled out as a major contributor to that.
Okay, we'll continue with that. Hausawa is calling in from Kaduna. Hello, Hausawa. Thanks for joining us on Tuesday Live. Hello. It looks we lost that call there. Conclude.
So, in response to that, this executive order will gain the support of Nigerian by President ensuring that the rule of law is followed. And as civil society campaigners around this issue in the country, we will keep public eye on this order. We will work closely with the law enforcement agency. For instance, we just launched a platform we will be launching in the next few days, where we will be looking into the properties in Abuja. A situation where a civil servant or a politically exposed person have more than 10, 15 houses in Maitama, and his source of income is only from as a civil servant. He has to explain to the public. We can put this in the public domain, and it is incumbent upon the law enforcement agency to take that into consideration in responding to public requests. Okay. It's only when EFCC, ICPC, and other law enforcement agencies is not responding that people will begin to interpret the issue of trust.
Okay.
And then the government and the president must also invest in strengthening the capacity of the law enforcement agency in carrying out forensic investigation. A situation where government takes people to court, or the law enforcement agency takes people to court, and they don't back it up with an empirical evidence. And I give you an example. 6 years ago, I was arrested in this country by the police. That my friend, who was a PA, personal assistant to Governor Adam Oshomole, we went out and we returned back home. In less than 3 minutes, the wife came to my house and he was assassinated. Few weeks later, the police arrested me and claimed in a public disclosure that I was the one who killed Olaiton. I sent people to kill him.
Okay,
and after 6 years, I'm just telling you how.
Let's not deviate from the matter.
I'm just telling you the issue of trust.
Yeah.
After 6 years, the claim is unfounded. It reduces the trust of people on institution. For example, EFCC or ICPC takes a governor to a court. 10 years after, no prosecution. And then finally you see that governor is now in a ruling party and nothing happens to his property.
Okay, just to sustain this,
yes.
Just to clarify, I know on good authority that the former SGF is still being investigated.
Exactly, but it's still a major, it's a major party voice in APC.
Yeah, two.
That is not good.
Yeah, still on this.
Yes.
The Senate President, for example,
went
through the whole hawk.
Yes.
Went through judicial process.
Yes.
And indeed, even Mr. President has commended the judiciary.
Yes.
And that it is a good example.
Yes.
In the anti-corruption war.
Yes.
Now, the good thing you have said to us is that this whole thing will help Nigerians and the civil society. I'm expecting maybe during the line of ICPC, EFC,
yes,
you want to tell us that in a couple of days, one way of supporting the Executive Order 6, maybe the civil society is going to come up with maybe a bill to the National Assembly to strengthen the fight.
No, there's even a bill. There's even a bill in the National Assembly, and now
civil society,
you know, but proceed of crime bill. This the reason if we had passed the proceed of crime bill into law, there will be no need for executive order. Okay. It is because proceed of crime poker bill has not been passed into law.
Okay.
For instance, the issue of asset management agency.
Let's take this call from Aminu from Meduguri.
Yes.
Hello, Aminu. You are on to Tuesday Live. I think this program is getting lively now.
Yes.
Hello, Aminu. You are on to Tuesday Live.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes.
How are you?
Good evening. Go ahead.
My contribution is that the policy of the government fighting of corruption, that now people are seeing it in this form. The issue is, if this government, after 8 years, left power without institutions properly, who will manage this type of fighting? So, what this man of the African development trying to say that you have to follow institutionally. That means whoever comes to power, those things are there for you to obey.
Yes.
They are placed there by law. Because this is issue of money. Lamurde was there now, prior to all these people. What happened to him? They said the money that they retrieved from people, they still went and took that money, some part of the money. So, this is money issue. So, because you say you impose that, you have to fight these things logically and institutionally.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much. Well, on this note, we'll take a break. The program, once again, is Tuesday Live, and we are looking at Executive Order 6 signed by Mr. President, and we titled it, Wielding the Big Stick Against Corruption. We'll be right back after this time out.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Before we went on break, it has been established by the discussants here that the Executive Order 6 is all about Nigerians. They need to reinforce the onslaught against corruption in Nigeria, looking at it much more proactively and indeed enhancing it in a much more proactive way. After all, before now, we had situations where people said the agencies that are supposed to be investigating corruption are being twisted by the executive. But before now, it's not all about studio discussions. We want you to straight to get the views of Nigerians on how they feel about this issue. Let's hear from Nigerians.
The president has signed Executive Order number 6 to strengthen the corruption fight, and I'm in support of that. May he have the strength to continue from where he stopped.
No, Buhari is the only person that will pass a nice decision in Nigeria. Because if you can take a look, our leaders have already consumed the money of their own and they are about eating their children's own. Then God brought Buhari to save our own children in future. So whatever Buhari did is nice. Buhari is the only person that suits Nigeria. For him to sign that executive order number 6 is very, very important to everybody. He's not doing it for selfish interest. He do it for the interest of everybody. But for the people that want to take things on their own selfish interest, they are the people that are kicking against it. But for we, if you follow the media, social media, everything here, the news, read the paper, you know that Buhari is the person we have been looking for. He's the missing person for a very long time ago. Take a look at Nigeria today. Stand up for Zuba to Lokoja, formerly you see grass everywhere. But now, follow, you see it is crops all over. And food is cheap now.
Mr. President just wants to strengthen the fight against corruption and perhaps injustice. And I think it will go a long way. There are no better times than now when you put things right. So it's on time. It's not ahead and it's not behind. It's on time. I can't say that it's targeting anybody. If you feel you are being targeted, come out and vindicate yourself.
Fighting corruption is very good, but in that aspect of classificating other people's properties based on they have been found guilty or they have been vindicated of corruption, I see that it can be political.
Executive number 6 that was signed by His Excellency, to me is a good thing. One, to confiscate properties that are stolen by past government or something is a good thing. You see, His Excellency is doing a good thing. For the fact that the election is coming does not mean that the right thing should not be done. It's handling it. Let the top that have stolen much should be handled. It's a very good thing. It's a good thing he's doing, whereby the past government could not really do it. He's doing it, and Nigeria will have his support.
For the fact that the election is just by the corner does not mean that the government should not do the right thing. Gentlemen, I think you heard from Nigeria. That's the interesting thing about a vox pop.
Yes.
When you hear cross-sectoral view, the people have said it there, it is not targeted at anybody. Now, we are coasting home now. It is clear that the Executive Order 6 is about making Nigeria a better society. It's about recovering the loots. People were saddled with responsibilities before now, even presently, and they abused it and went to get it correctly. So, moving on, this shows that it is about the three arms of government, everybody put together to ensure that the anti-corruption onslaught is much more proactive and potent. So, moving forward, what's the way forward?
The way forward in this case is, as I said, one, the agencies must actually sit up. Two, other agencies that are not directly, responsible for enforcing the order and other, extant, prohibitions of the law, should also really do their own side of the work. I started giving examples of, some of the challenges we have. We have, the ages, this Abuja Geographical Information System, for you to, know the ownership of some properties.
Fantastic.
You have to have access to this.
Okay, just a minute.
Yes.
We lost this call from Kaduna by Hausawa. It was about concluding. Hello, Hausawa, welcome back. Please just go straight to the point.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Go straight to the point. We can hear you loud and clear.
Actually, the topic of discussion tonight is issue of fighting corruption. The executive order number 6 has been signed by Mr. President. It's a very good welcome development in this country. Actually, this is what we've been looking. This man has been missed for a quite number of years, and we give glory to God that we brought him back, that Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari and President. So actually, the fight against corruption in this country is something that we've been looking, understand? In a various aspect of this life in a country called Nigeria. Actually, what we've been suffering in this country, this is the kind of epidemic that we've been suffering from. So actually, my problem with fight against corruption in this country is the continuity. That is my problem. The continuity. After 8 years of this government, after 8 years of this administration, we really want to have a kind of an institution that will really look onto the very important that is corruption. Understand? So actually, my greatest problem in this country is the issue of continuity. So I wish and I pray that this fight against corruption will go a long way. So I hope all the necessary parties concerned will look into this issue. And we give glory to God that this fight against corruption will continue to be in this country, because we have a lot of criminals in all aspects of this country. We don't know. But we are wishing Mr. President long life, good health, to continue to fight this corruption in this country.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much, Hausawa. The point basically is that he expects that the onslaught on corruption in Nigeria, initiated by Mr. President, should outlive even his tenure. He has even gone ahead to say after his 8 years tenure. That's what he said. So, conclude.
Okay. I was saying that all other agencies responsible for enforcing the order should actually sit up. I gave the example of ages, for instance. For you to know who owns, a certain property within the federal capital here, you have to, have access to ages. On several occasions, agencies, in this anti-corruption fight, they go there to seek for information, but it takes ages, if you like, months before, I mean, you get the information.
So how can we obtain that?
Within that period, the person being investigated
will sell the property.
May decide to sell the property
Yes.
to what we call bona fide purchaser for value. So that person, at the end of the day, you may not, start to chase that person. So what we're saying is, the order is actually, there is a provision there which actually, put a sanction on the, a person, that heads of such agencies will be personally responsible if they refuse to
disclose.
And I'm happy one of the callers has talked about the need to go scientific in most of your investigations. So I believe you're onto that already.
Yeah, forensic. Yeah, we have. I think AFCC, ICPC, we all have forensic laboratories where our investigation is going forensic.
Okay. Let's take on Chile Okoroma now.
The way forward?
Yes, basically. Why I should not see it as a problem, why the arms of government should not see it as a problem, but totally towards surmounting and attaining and giving it a push.
Firstly, there's need to strengthen the capacity of the law enforcement agencies, as we have said. Of course, we know that corruption is going high-tech, and sophisticated means are being used. So for you to match that, then also you should have sophisticated and high-tech equipment to be able to investigate such matters and also trace assets. Tracing assets is not an easy thing.
It's not.
It's not an easy thing. And that being the case, another thing is that the law enforcement agencies, they need the cooperation.
Kipli, you sustain your conversation now. Yes. Let's take this call from Farouk. Farouk is calling in from Benin Kebbi. Hello, Farouk. You're on to Tuesday Live. Hello?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm Comrade Farouk from Benin Kebbi. You see, this executive order, people should take ownership of fighting against corruption in Nigeria. We should not limit it to Buhari. We should go beyond Buhari. And fighting against corruption should go beyond EFCC, should go beyond ICPC. People must take ownership of fighting against corruption. It should be in such a way that if you have a person, you yourself, you ask him, we should begin to ask questions. Many questions need to be asked. You see a person living above his earnings and you did not care to ask questions. No, we should begin to ask questions. We know every one of us that is living above his earnings. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Farouk. Well, you were talking about capacity, but let me take this challenge to David. The NGO, the CBOs, this is an opportunity the government has given them to take ownership, taken from Farouk, and check the living lifestyle of people within their means. Yes. Now, we expect that the space have been given to NGOs like you to take ownership, not to pick holes.
Yes.
So how will NGOs like you take ownership of this fight in line with Executive Order 6? Farouk has just said from Benin Kebbi, if we take ownership, it's not about EFCC, it's not about ICPC, it's about Nigerians as a people. So how would an NGO like you take ownership of this and not to pick holes?
First, just to let you know that, first, there are certain things that has given us the opportunity to take ownership. The first time in the history in the world, the Nigerian government has provided us an opportunity to participate in the asset recovery process in Nigeria. I am the co-chair of the Anti-Corruption Working Group of the Open Government Partnership in Nigeria. Okay. I work closely with the ICPC, the EFCC, and other anti-corruption agencies. It will interest you to note that in the MOU that led to the repatriation of the $322 million to Nigeria, we are going to monitor it. And the government has provided the opportunity for us to participate in the process. And then two, recently we have developed a platform we call Property Tracker. What we want to do with the Property Tracker is that we want to ensure that all the properties in Abuja will know the owner. I am happy that the acting chairman of ICP has publicly made it known to Nigerians that it's even in the interest of the anti-corruption agency to also unpack who owns what. Because government need to collect tax on these properties. And this is an opportunity of engagement. Then two, we have also reported grand corruption cases to EFCC. And EFCC has also provided the opportunity for us to engage. And in our meetings, EFCC, ICPC normally send high-level representation for engagement with us. That's an opportunity of an engagement. But however, I like to put on the table that what will strengthen this anti-corruption fight are institutions that need to be put in place in the long term. And one of them is to strengthen the anti-corruption agency. For instance, why having acting chairman in ICPC? Why having acting chairman in EFCC? Why can't the president take a bold step?
I feel.
No, I'm just telling you. No, yes, I know, but I know.
So the bottom line is that I want to get that point. How NGOs like
no, that's what I'm telling you.
Yes.
Because if you strengthen those institutions, our engagement with it will be effective and long term.
Let's take this call from
because it's very
Mohammed.
important.
Yes. Let's take this call from Mohammed. Mohammed is calling in from Lagos. Yes. Hello, Mohammed. Hello, Mohammed. You're on to Tuesday Live. Wow, it looks... Hello? You're on to Tuesday Live.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, go ahead, we can hear you.
This is Mohammed from Lagos.
We can hear you. Go ahead, Mohammed. You're welcome to Tuesday Live.
Okay. Let me just emphasize that let me emphasize that I appreciate what Mr. Farouk from Benekeri said, that we Nigerians, we need to take ownership of this fight. It is not about Buhari alone. It's not about EFCC or ICPC alone. All Nigerians need to kind of cooperate in this fight. It is for all of us. It is not only for Buhari. Buhari is above 70. So even if this fight against corruption is achieved, how old is Buhari for him to benefit from it? So we need to take ownership so that it will benefit virtually all Nigerians, irrespective of our age. Then secondly, ICPC and EFCC need to collaborate with other sister agencies. There are a lot of security agencies that have very good investigators that can investigate very well. I can mention very few. I was opportune to a kind of investigate activities of National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. They have very fine investigators, financial investigators. I think EFCC, ICPC need to collaborate with agencies like that so that at least there will be synergy in the fight against corruption. It should not be left with EFCC, ICPC alone. The volume of corruption is much, much bigger than EFCC and ICPC. What is happening in Nigeria, honestly, is very much bigger than these two organizations. Let them collaborate with other sister agencies so that more results could be achieved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohammed. Well, I like the word networking. Yeah, use the word collaboration. Yes. I really want to take off from there. I'll still come back to you.
Yeah.
He has talked about the need to collaborate, the need to be more astute investigations. So take off from there.
Yes, okay. For collaboration or networking, it is something
not to operate in silos.
We welcome.
Okay.
I mean, generally, as I'm talking to you now, we have been collaborating with the EFCC, for instance. We are prosecuting cases jointly. At the moment we are prosecuting one former governor jointly with EFCC. Even last week, I visited the SSS, that is Directorate of State Security, and it is all about collaboration. So this is not something new to us. We've been doing it, and we thank you very much for even alerting us to the other agency like NDLEA. That they have fine investigators and prosecutors. The point is, our mandate is slightly different from theirs. Theirs is more to do with drugs, and for that, maybe their own investigation tend to be more tilted towards that.
Drug-related.
When the issue of corruption, is something that goes beyond grand corruption we are talking about now and other. It has actually translated to more serious crimes. So we need specialized investigators. So at the moment, we are trying to strengthen our investigative capacity within the commission. I gave an example of a conference I attended recently, where in some countries they are talking about money laundering in e-sports. Money laundering in e-sports. This is something very strange to us, but we need to really key in to appreciate what is that about, and so that our investigators will not find difficulty in challenging dealing with matters like that.
Okay, let me come to you, Chile. The truth is, if, for instance, I work with EFCC and you don't work with EFCC, David does not work with EFCC, is it possible that my lifestyle could be a problem, could impede how we do the job? Is it possible?
Sorry, I don't get just the
lifestyle.
The lifestyle.
By investigative agencies. For instance, I go to EFCC office, I go to ICPC office, and I see very exotic cars. Will I believe in it? Could it affect the process?
I don't know whether it really
I'm just saying an instance.
It's hypothetical.
Yes, exactly.
Because of course,
that's the point I'm making.
Yes, it's, let me say that you cannot. You can't see it. First of all, let's start from.
Okay, let me make it very simple.
Yes, internally. Yes.
The believability of Nigerians on investigative agencies. Yes. How can we build it?
Exactly.
Now, okay, I was coming to the internal mechanism.
Yeah, you can still get to, but let's hit that. But you have talked about collaboration.
Yes,
here.
collaboration.
If you collaborate and the believability from the part of the people is weak or low on you, it becomes a problem.
It's trust.
No, the thing is that the believability, you just have to judge it from what we have done. The results of what we have done is the results, the products that will show whether you are doing the right thing or you're not doing the right thing. People, for instance, before now, people had complained, EFCC, they are not doing their work. They have cases pending in court for several years, and they don't want to prosecute them. We were doing our best. But there were loopholes in the judicial process which were being exploited to cause delay of those, in those cases. Okay. Some of them, for instance, the Daria case.
Let me take this last call before I allow you to conclude.
Okay, please.
Because it's very fundamental here. Jonathan from Gombe is on to Tuesday Live. Hello, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us. We lost it. Please.
Yes. For instance, the Daria case. We have quite a number of them. The Daria case was pending in court on interlocutory applications from the High Court. It went to the Supreme Court. And it lasted for 11 years. We were ready every time to put our witnesses in the box. But because the court needed to balance between prosecuting and then allowing the person who is being prosecuted to exercise the right of appeal, they had to remove some of the grant stay of execution, of proceedings, pending the conclusion of the cases from the court.
I hope you didn't get me wrong. The point out why I've said this question is this. For instance, with Executive Order number 6 now, I imagine there's going to be an avalanche of calls and movements into ICPC, EFCC, saying, look, we now have to take ownership of this. Remember when we had the whistleblowing? Everybody was available to do it.
What
and
led
it was working.
to the
So the point I'm making is that if that reflection is there, it's possible that you have a floodgate of people coming in on a daily basis to update you. So that is the point I'm making. That reassurance.
No, the reassurance, we are there, we have the capacity to do that. One thing is that with every sense of modesty, the EFCC, the ICPC, we have some of the best investigators in Nigeria. As far as corruption cases are concerned, economic and financial crimes cases are concerned. These are people who have been trained. They are not even drawn from the police. And we have our own people who we trained. We employed fresh graduates, we employed them, trained them. And training is going on, retraining is going on to meet up with the challenges.
Before you conclude, Jennifer is calling in from Gombe State. Hello, Jennifer. You're on to Tuesday Live.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. You're on to Tuesday Live. Go ahead.
Evening. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. We can hear you. Could you turn down the volume of your television set?
Yes, I want to make my contribution.
Go ahead.
Yes, I can hear you too. I can hear you too. My problem with this country is change begins with everyone. Because once you want to change, everyone in his whole family, you have to change the way you behave to your children, the way your wife behaves to you, then we can have change in this nation. It's not a matter of being there at the head, while in the grassroots, a lot of people are suffering. One. Then secondly, the issue of religion should not be a barrier to corruption in Nigeria. Because one, if we are having the issue of religion without us knowing that we are all one, we should always respect one another's opinion, then we can have change. Then corruption will be free from us. But in this country, like our Master Collier said, because one, if you want to work with NGO, you have to have connection. In everything in Nigeria is corruption. How can we eradicate corruption? Once in everything we want to do, we always bring connection inside. The poor man cannot go up there to seek for a job. That is corruption. No one will listen to the commoner. So if we want change, we want corruption to be eradicated in this country, please, we should try to do the right thing. By changing from me, I should respect my parents. I should show humility. I should show respect to whosoever comes my way. So that's change, and corruption will be free. So the issue of all this, our government, talking about politics, once you are in power, you'll be vindicated of all your atrocities. So like what is happening in the House of Senate, something happened just of recently, when we know that the issue of showing all that you have all your assets. So you can imagine with the kind of country we are having, once you are in power, then nobody will touch you, you're untouchable. So tell me, for how long can we go with this?
Thank you, Jennifer.
So if we want to say, it's not by saying it by mouth.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
We all do the right thing.
Thank you. I think it's just tied to what I was just about to
Yes,
So
yes.
can you conclude now?
So I was saying,
ahead.
for instance, when the issue of the whistleblower policy came into force, of course, we had cases people gave false information because maybe they are disgruntled or had an axe to grind with somebody or whatever. But you have to have guidelines. There are guidelines to manage. Even when we have a deluge of people coming, we know this person has this asset or whatever, they will have to still deploy guidelines and then make the people understand that in the act, if you give us false information, you are liable to be prosecuted if it's done maliciously. So that will make people to be weary when they are coming. So you make sure that when you are coming to make such a report, you must be on good footing regarding the veracity or the truthfulness of the information you want to give. And you must do it sincerely, not maliciously. Because if at the end of the day, we serve everybody. We have to protect the interest of every person. as enshrined in the Constitution. So if somebody gives wrong information, of course, the person will be dealt with according to provisions of the Act. We'll be able to manage such things when they come. We have a mechanism in place for doing that.
Okay, we're concluding now. Let me start with David. In conclusion now, the young lady from Gombe just talked about the need. Change begins with me. It's already a campaign that is on, and the fact remains that I believe we all agree with the fact that as cancerous as corruption is, corruption transcends religious barriers, it transcends political platforms, it does not know which political party you belong. So
it afflicts everybody.
In talking about the onslaught on corruption, we should go beyond these levels and look beyond and look at the larger picture, which is Nigeria. How and how best do we work together, take ownership, collaborate, open up to EFCC, work with ICPC, the three arms of government, the tiers of government, working together to ensure that this move, this new direction, Mr. President is saying, look, let's think differently on this onslaught on corruption to succeed. Going home now.
First, I think the Open Government Partnership provides that platform.
Okay, before you conclude, quickly, before you conclude, I hear Eugene from Adamawa is on the line, and this is our very last call on Tuesday Live tonight. Hello, Eugene. Hello, Eugene, you're on to Tuesday Live. Hello, Eugene, if you can hear, you're on. Well, it looks we lost that call, and I must say this is about the last call on this program tonight. So, in conclusion, please.
So, the Open Government Partnership provides that enabling environment. Issue of collaboration. For example, Nigerian government have signed on to the Open Government Partnership, which lay emphasis of the principle of co-creating policy that will impact positively on anti-corruption in Nigeria. As a co-chair of that anti-corruption aspect of the OGP, I think we can work together with the ICPC, with the EFCC, in building synergy in tackling corruption. And one of them is about how do we provide information? How will the information be used in a way that will reinforce confidence in the system? And then two, what are the missing links in the current asset recovery regime in Nigeria? Nigeria just undergo the UNCAC review in Chapter 2 and Chapter 5. The Chapter 5 of the UNCAC is the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which talk about asset recovery. Now, there are missing links in the legal framework in Nigeria. Like the Proceeds of Crime Bill seek to address those missing links. How can we work together with the National Assembly to ensure that the Proceeds of Crime Bill is passed into law? That's one area. Then two, what are the anti-money laundering laws, bills that are currently in National Assembly that need to be passed into law? Then the asset declaration form of politically exposed leader. How can citizens have an access to it? Because if citizens don't have access to it, how do we know that those in power are controlling some asset? We can't. So government must strengthen the institution to make it accessible. Then two, this law enforcement agent must also be transparent to disclose all assets they seize, so that there should be a transparency in the process. And then lastly, the issue of awareness, because ignorance is a big issue. I can tell you that many people who are now campaigning against this executive order C's have not read the order. And we've looked some of the editorial report, particularly of recently, you will be so surprised that some editorial report don't have a context because they are built under false pretense. So my call is that the government, and which is the president himself, he should show the strong signal. And what is the strong signal? I give you one example that can reduce the trust. Just recently, a Premier Times reported that a minister forged a certificate
We're deviated now.
No, we're not.
Hit the nail on the head.
No, I'm saying that
just
the potential
just
trust.
Hang on.
You need a trust.
Hang on.
You need a trust.
Just hang on.
You see, these are the things that reduce.
Take this point.
No, these are the things that reduce government.
We have gotten calls.
Yes.
We have gotten calls.
Yes.
Because
yes, I'm saying that when the public report. No. When the public report.
Yep.
When the public report. How government treat that report is very fundamental.
Beautiful.
And so, if Premier Times have reported that a minister that is in power has a false certificate, is it incumbent upon the government to ensure
thank you
that
very much.
it's treated?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
The point basically is the points are made clear.
Yes.
We're talking about the fact that people have called in and they have made the fact that take ownership, collaborate,
and government must respond.
And we are here, we are telling the Nigerians that this whole thing is not taking side. It's not targeted at anybody.
Exactly.
But it's about moving Nigeria, making Nigeria that society
and
that
government
we
responding.
want to be.
And government responding.
Beautiful. You have made your point like that. So, in conclusion.
Thank you very much. Let me just deviate a little. In taking ownership of the fight against corruption, the president has said the change begins with every Nigerian, with me. You know, most times some people are just looking at people who are up there and say, there are people who are corrupt, they are still in a commonwealth and all, but they don't even think of what they are doing in their own small corner. You go to an office, somebody is going to an office and is bound to discharge some responsibilities and is looking for something. 2,000 naira, if you don't give him, he will not attend to you. Meanwhile, he is shouting about grand corruption out there. So, one way of taking ownership of the fight against corruption is by recognizing that in your own small corner, you should not engage in corrupt practices at your level. So that is the only way, that's one way you can give a push to the fight against corruption and then realize the good intentions of the president. So that is what I want to say. I needed to deviate a little from this executive order. Because that is usually the problem. People they make so much noise. And how, like this corruption transparency and
the corruption perception index,
how do they get their data information? Is by interviewing, they go about interviewing people in the streets.
I'm happy you went off the normal to say, okay, now looking at it, tying to what you said, beyond government agencies, he has spoken, religious leaders, churches, all that. What should they be doing too? Schools, all that.
They are faith-based manuals for teaching,
anti-corruption
religious
values.
Leaders value to teach.
Yes.
Their
ethical
members,
values.
and then have them imbued with ethical values in the fight to make sure that people shun corruption, even from the cradle. And then also going back to the family level. And gone are the days when these days people don't, you see somebody comes in with money, your son who's not doing any work. People don't even, some parents bring it, it's own share. They don't even say, where did you get this money? The parents from time to time check the bags of their children who have come from school. I say, where did you get this? Where did you get this? You don't take another person's thing. You don't steal money that does not belong to you. These are ways of inculcating these values into people. But they are just so much eagerness to make money. And once the money comes in, by whatever means, some people don't even care how the money is coming in. So that is the problem. These values must come back. They used to say a good name is better than riches. You hardly hear such things now. But people are more minded about riches and the money they make. So this is very fundamental.
Okay. You know, at the beginning, I used 3 perspectives. I said, well, the need to know, truth must be told, facts. I think we have laid all this open. And I believe a day after the Executive Order 6 was signed, it was as though in a fortnight, the EFC cell, ICP cell will have been filled with people. It looks as though people will be locked down. But right now, it is clear from the reactions from the public, calls and inputs made here that Executive Order 6 has only said, look, we have to follow this anti-corruption onslaught differently, proactively, neatly. Even if we will not violate the law, we are not usurping the powers of the legislature, we are not doing the job of the judiciary. So now, given the fact that we have established the fact that this thing is not meant for political opponents, it's not a religious thing, what word of reassurance do you give to Nigerians? People have said we should take ownership.
Yes. Well, I will assure Nigerians that one, we will not infringe upon their fundamental rights, and two, we should consider this, fight as something, for everybody. I would even suggest that, the whole, society should serve as vanguard for, anti-corruption. We are ready if they report, maybe anybody, having, some asset beyond his means. We have the power within, the law to actually investigate and deal with that, go, after that person. So, and as I said, the order is actually, gingering us to, be alive to our responsibility. And it does not in any way empower any of the agencies to, infringe upon anybody's right. So that is the assurance we give them.
Okay, back to David, in conclusion.
Yes.
Now, one sector we have not really touched, but a lot happens there in terms of corruption. And this executive order also holds them tight, is the private sector, where you belong.
Yes.
What word of advice do you have to them to take ownership? Sure, taking ownership is more on the private sector than even the public sector.
Exactly.
So what advice do you have for them?
For example, there is a new project that DFID is funding in tackling corruption in the private sector. And one of the key things that we're looking is having a collective action. Because there's no way anti-corruption will succeed in Nigeria if there is no collective action. And what that means is that even within the private sector, we need to also comply with rules. For example, within the banking system, suspicious reporting of movement of funds, it is incumbent upon the banks to report. And even as non-governmental organization, there are statutory obligations. Our annual report, our annual returns to the government need to be carried out. And in doing this, you must comply with the rules and the standards. And so the key thing and the key message is that we all must work together to build a country where corruption will no longer be a stumbling block. Because somehow, even the rich also pay price for corruption. The other day, a few years ago, the Abuja Benin Road, a very prominent politician who have been very top, he and his son had an accident.
Personal again.
No. And I'm just telling you that even the rich cry.
Okay.
It's not only the poor that pay price for corruption.
Just give advice to the private sector.
Yes.
Yeah, let's
and so what I'm saying is that the private sector too, they are not also finding it easy.
Okay.
That's why the federal government, that's why the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative was put into law in the country, and that helps strengthening how the private sector are working in the oil and gas sector in this country. So it's in our interest for us to work together. It's not just about pointing finger to the government, but government takes responsibility of leading the process. And we citizens has responsibility to work with government to ensure that results are delivered. Okay. So again, let me use this opportunity to thank the federal government for providing this enabling environment by creating this executive order, and that they should also create the opportunity for citizens to own the process and trust the process.
Okay. Yes. Now, you read.
Yes.
Some persons have a lot of information, but at times they are so afraid that if I go and report maybe to EFCC, I'll in turn be arrested. How open are you now?
It's a mindset. No, if somebody's hands are clean, why should the person be afraid? I've had in the cases where people came to my office, after we have interacted and discussed, they say, I didn't know the EFCC is like this. You could see like that, even the people laugh. They joke and all those things. No, they say freely. And then he went away. It's only the guilty who are afraid. If somebody's hands are, so why should you come with your information and then you look at it? But if you, because of giving information, you just want to use it as a small screen to cover yourself, of course, investigation will reveal that you who are making the report, that your hands are not clean.
Okay.
And then you also be investigated. And then the assets of the person confiscated following due process of law. But let me just say something. I wish to implore the president, under Section 12, to exercise his powers. Under Section 12, Subsection 2, of banks, employees, etc., Declaration of Assets Act, to include even some people, organizations in the private sector in the application of that act. And it provides against illicit enrichment. So it can be effectively used to check corruption in the public sector, in the private sector.
Okay. From all indication, it is now clear that corruption has no color. Everybody has the same color, except you, who is vulnerable. Then you have a different color from others. How do we wear the same color holistically to the end? Tied to Executive Order 6.
Well, as I said earlier, you know, the agencies must actually key into the order and ensure that it is implemented to its fullest. You know that the issue of values is also very important. Actually, you know, in our commission we produced a national values curriculum, which targeted, you know, the young children, students. I mean, you know, there's this popular saying that you need to catch them young. So that is how we started it. So we
does it cut across?
Yeah, it cuts across. I mean, you know, the
primary, secondary,
up to the basic level. In fact, we are even trying to escalate it to the university, you know, level. I mean, to inject some values in the, anti-corruption, values. Some values of transparency, accountability in the system generally.
So in effect, the point I'm making is that we are coasting home now. Hit it on the head. Is corruption all about money, stealing money?
No. Corruption goes beyond, stealing money.
Because you talked about catching them young.
Yeah, it goes beyond, stealing
Educate
money.
us briefly on that.
Yeah. You see, anything that violates the let down, values, issues of nepotism. Favoritism,
Rependalism,
cronyism, I mean, even godfatherism, if you like, they are all forms of corruption, which many people do not consider as such. As somebody is giving example of sexual harassment.
Yes, that's a serious one. To get marks, yes.
Abuse of office, abuse of office is corruption. Yes. So the example somebody gave now of sexual, harassment.
Exploitation.
As far as we are concerned, under our act, that action is abuse of office, and any such act will actually attract our attention, and we will prosecute whoever is responsible.
Well, I would say we have almost come to the end of the program. Let me start by saying that the cliche, if you don't fight corruption, corruption will fight back. It is not an easy thing. Nigeria is not the first. Other countries did it and they have attained success. Everybody has keyed into it. We have received calls and inputs. The Vox Pop was very clear. And I remember one of the persons there said, truly, it is our money they stole before they eat the money of our children. Mr. President has done very well. Yes. The picture is clear here that Mr. President means well for Nigerians. It's left for Nigerians to key in, take ownership, collaborate, open up, bring information to agencies, and also even people in the private sector to bring information to these agencies to ensure that people who are corrupt, lifestyle, all that, and I believe I'll be right to say that the EFCC and ICPC are saying that they are even more available than before. Yes. No more the issues of being twisted on investigations. They are stronger and they have been given a clearer route to do. So thank you so much, gentlemen. Starting with Reverend David Ogolo, Executive Director, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice and convener of Nigeria Forum on Asset Recovery. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live.
Thank you very much.
Also, Director, Legal and Prosecution Department of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Mr. Chile Okoroma. Thanks for being on Tuesday Live.
Thank you very much.
Last but not the least is the Acting Chairman, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, Dr. Musa Usman Abubakar. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Change begins with me, change begins with you. The fight against corruption is for all of us. There is no politics in it, there's no religion in it. Mr. President means well. He has only said, let's tinker and do the onslaught differently. It does not mean to lock down anybody or to victimize anybody. The institutions have spoken, and Nigerians have said, let us together take ownership and ensure that this campaign rages on and succeeds, even transcends and outlives his administration. Thanks for watching Tuesday Live. We have come to the end of it. It was nice having you, and I believe the wielding the big stick against corruption will be sustained in Nigeria to success. On behalf of all of us, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.